This is Taylor Sparks of the Skincare for Athletes Green Fitness blog, where we feature athletes, experts, products, and events to bring you hints, tips, insights, and perspectives on what it takes to be healthy, eco-friendly, and green. Joining us today is Stefan Pinto, National Health and Fitness writer for Examiner.com, author of Fat to Fit, 50 Easy Ways to Lose Weight, and a wonderful male model. Stefan, thank you for taking the time to speak with our Green Fitness blog.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Okay, Stefan, many people know your story of going from fat to fit and becoming a male model. What was the one thing that turned your health and fitness lifestyle around?
Well, as I said in my book, it was an accident. I wish I could say it was something fantastic happened to me, but it was something pretty mundane. Ironic, I went to buy food, and that started my change of life in terms of how I look at food and how I approach food. It was one day in New Jersey, I went to a Whole Foods. I had never been to a Whole Foods. I had never heard of a Whole Foods. I went there only because of proximity. It was a new town I lived in. And I walked in and I made purchases of food I had never typically bought. And while I was leaving, there was a tiny sign that said Motion Fitness this way. I was curious. I was fat. I was bored. And I went upstairs, and Motion Fitness was a gym that didn't even exist.
Oh,
Yeah, and I ended up finding a gym that wasn't there, and that changed my life.
wow. So during your heaviest, I read that you thought that weight gain and a breakdown in the body was just a natural part of life, even though you were only 30. Now, where do people get those beliefs from?
Everywhere, society, it's pretty much the status quo. You see it in TV commercials, your doctor. I suffered from something called GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, and it was heartburn that progressed into something that was worse. I also would get migraines. I had terrible allergies, and my sinuses would always act up. And this was something called sinusitis. It was acute sinus
Mm,
infections I would chronically have. And even when I went to the doctor, he would just prescribe medication, which I would take because you would feel better. But it wouldn't fix the problem. With sinusitis, it would happen every season. The migraines would happen. You would never know when they would happen, and they're quite debilitating. But you would always pop a pill. So there I
mm.
was on the road to popping all of these medications, and I just assumed that I would be one of those people that would always complain. When someone says, "How are you?" I would say, "Well, this hurts and that hurts." It says, "Oh, well, you're getting older. You're 30."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, so how long did it take to get your body in condition, and then how long did it take to get your mind into condition so that they matched? Did it happen at the same time or not
I'm
quite?
glad you asked to follow up your mind because getting your body in condition is something that pretty much everyone does, and that's what I call fad diets. So you go on a diet and your body happens to fall into what you want, but your mind doesn't change. And that's critical because they're breaking habits, they're changing habits, and habits are good and habits are bad. Most often they're bad habits. And it took me, I would say, about 5 years before my mind changed in that I no longer felt like I wanted junk food. I no longer felt a craving. I knew how to control food cravings. I knew that it was okay to wait after you eat a small snack and eat
Hmm.
small portions, and that I didn't really need any more. But to change my body simply by exercising and joining a gym took about really a good 2 years because I quit. After the first 2 months, I
Ah,
stopped going to the gym. I figured I couldn't do this. And it was something that I guess everyone does, but I went back. But I didn't
right,
quit.
right. Wonderful, great. So, what prompted you to write the health and fitness articles for Examiner.com, as well as, I know you've written for some other publications?
Examiner happened by accident. I was serving jury duty in Miami on a murder case, and I don't know if surely you've served jury duty, you've been called at least or something.
Yes,
And it's a lot of waiting.
it is.
Yeah, and in Miami, particularly, there's waiting in a room filled with people, and the televisions are all blaring Spanish novellas. I didn't really want to watch TV. I'm not really a TV person. So I ended up just writing, and I started my first blog post, Whole Foods Changed My Life. And that went up on
Oh,
at that time, there really wasn't blogs. And
right.
it's what I submitted to the Examiner. I saw an ad looking for writers, and that's what I sent to them. And they hired me at first to be a Miami regional writer.
Hmm.
And when I moved to Los Angeles, they promoted me to national.
Wonderful. So was that your natural step to writing the Fat to Fit book? Is that what prompted you? Was it all the articles and interviews or?
Yes, the Fat to
Okay.
Fit book has no interviews with any celebrities. The Fat to Fit book is, they're just 50 easy ways to lose weight. And I call them easy ways because they're practical ways. You don't have to run out and buy any special device. You don't have to eat any special food. I like to eat, and so does everyone. And
Me too.
right. So, and I have friends, and we go out and we eat at restaurants, and we do all of these things. And it's really high maintenance to go to a restaurant and have the chef redo his entire menu just to cater to you.
Yes.
We don't like people like that. So the book talks about what do you do in situations where you go out to eat and you like the meal or you want the meal. You know, it's just simple tips, and they're easy, practical tips for people who like to eat and people who have friends.
Good. So now how did you transition into modeling and then in fitness modeling?
Well, the modeling happened before the Examiner column. I
Okay.
started, yeah. After I left New Jersey, I moved to Miami in 2003. And in 2005, I was discovered by a model scout while buying a turkey wrap in, coincidentally, Whole Foods. I designed websites, and I had taken a lunch hour and I went to Whole Foods to buy a turkey wrap, and a model scout approached me and handed me his business card and said, "We're doing a casting for GNC. Would you like to stop by the agency and see if you can, perhaps model for us?" I didn't believe it at first. I had no idea what a model scout does or,
Right.
or anything like that. So I just took the card and I went down the aisle and I turned around, is he gone? And yeah, I went home and I called up a friend and who works for a PR firm, and he told me you should go. And I said, well, should I change? Should I put on a suit? He's like, no, go just exactly how they saw you. And I went and they spoke to me, and I went back and they signed me. And that's when they put you in touch with a photographer for the agency, and the photographer does what's called a test shoot.
Yes.
And that determines whether or not they'll sign you. And the agency called me when they got the pictures and said, can you come in, please? And I went in and they signed me.
Oh, wow. It's almost like a Cinderella story.
Yeah,
Or should I? Cinderfella.
Cinderella, yeah.
Cinderella. Well, now, what has been the most exciting part of the modeling? I mean, you go from designing webs to modeling.
Oh, wow. Everything pretty much, because this isn't something that I ever anticipated would happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
My first paying commercial gig, and when you're modeling, if you do a commercial campaign, that's where you get money.
Sure.
Yeah. So my first commercial campaign was for Sears, and it was for Sears eyewear. And funny enough, here I was thinking, oh, I was modeling because of my body. I always have to take off my shirt and do all of this. And the agent said, it's for your face. It's for Sears eyewear. They're doing glasses. And for me, that was a big shock because I do wear glasses, and it's the one thing no one sees me in. So here I was, my first modeling gig was for glasses, which I thought was funny. But anyway, it turned out to be, a pretty sizable campaign, and I did that. And then I've done, runway shows for Rockport shoes, for swimwear, for different designers and fashion weeks. And runway is great if you're a model. You don't really feel like you're a model until you do a runway show. But funny enough, runway shows, they don't really pay. So you're doing runway shows mostly for the adrenaline, for the rush,
yes,
fun of it. And always, always I tell people it's for who you meet along the way.
Okay. How tall are you, Stefan?
5'10".
You're 5'10". Okay. All right. So now, with regards to health and fitness, what would be the most important piece of advice to give to those people who are, long suffering and still struggling to lose their weight, whether it's that last 10 pounds or that first 50 pounds? What one piece of advice would you tell them?
Last 10 or first 50, cut everything in half. I tell everyone that most often we eat more than we really need. And, if you eat it and you don't need it, you're going to end up wearing it. So if you start out dieting for the first time and you love to eat, you eat lasagna, I love Italian food, and food is a problem for you. Cut everything in half and eat slowly. You'd be surprised at how much less you eat, because we tend to eat faster than what we really need. So we pile all this stuff into our stomach, and that's why you end up feeling so bloated, because you didn't really need all of that food. And I don't know if you know this, Taylor, but eating and exercising will age you.
Huh. It will.
Of course, it's stress on your body. Exercise is stress, and eating is the digestion portion of it is stress. So
Okay.
that's why it's really important when you eat nutrient-dense food so that when you do exercise, your body has the fuel to regenerate all of those cells that are lost during exercise.
That,
This is why exercise will make you young for some people, and for other people, that's why they'll look horrible when they exercise too much. And I'm sure you've seen that. You've
yes.
seen people who say, "Oh, I'm a runner. I do this and I do that," and they look really bad
Yes. Yes.
because their diet is terrible.
Yeah, I've seen some, especially some of the distance runners. They have, I always say they have bodies of 16-year-old gymnasts, but sometimes in the face they tend to look a little old from the wear and tear.
Yeah, gaunt, and it's from your diet. It's really, really important. You don't realize society don't realize how important eating and what we eat, how we eat is. We take it lightly. We figure it's just, oh, you just eat this and you're satiated. It's not. It doesn't work that way. It's like a car. You could buy a Mercedes and you fill it up with crappy gas. It's not going to run like a Mercedes. And the human body is the same way. Just think of the mechanics of the human body.
Right, right. This is true. This is true. So we're down to the final five, my five semi-random questions. Tell me, Stefan, what has been your proudest personal achievement?
The New York Times, hands down.
Yeah.
Being called by a reporter from the New York Times to ask me about a product that I was sort of photo chronicling on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
This was my proudest achievement. I'll tell you why. Because I studied journalism in college, and to be called up by the New York Times, I mean, of course, I had thought I wanted to work for the New York Times, but to be interviewed by the New York Times was a great achievement. Also, too, I was doing a Facebook social media campaign, had no idea what will happen.
Sure.
And Kai, shh, stop. That's the bird. He wants his proudest achievement too.
Yes.
And so I felt like the campaign worked because the New York Times saw it. And in terms of prestige, they ended up talking about, asking me questions about my diet and my fitness regime. I mean, that really, really made me feel credible as a person who wrote a national fitness column to be asked those questions by the New York Times.
Oh, yes. Very much so. Title of the last book you've read?
Oh, I'm reading a book now. It's out of print. It's called The New Man. So I don't know if you could find it. But I also read The Celestine Prophecy. I'm big, huge on all of these enlightenment books. But, yeah. So I know The Celestine Prophecy I'd read when everybody was reading it.
Yeah.
And I sort of figured, oh, Lord, here we go. But I read it again on my Kindle, and it's actually a fantastic book if you can get through it. It's not for everyone, but I quite liked it. It's sort of like the Da Vinci Code.
It is.
Some people liked it, others didn't.
Yeah, I read it when it first came out too. I liked it as well. And the first book you said was A New Man?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody would want to read that, but sure, if you can.
Do you know?
It's a lot to do with Christianity, and I'm not a Bible thumper. No way. But I like to read, different things, different topics, different subjects, what people are talking about. And, and religion is something that fascinates me in terms of that's how I was brought up. And religion, let's face it, is a cause for a lot of conflict. So A New Man, it pretty much talks about what does the Bible really talk about. But we won't talk too much about that because I don't want people to think, oh my God, Stefan Pinto's a Bible thumper.
Let them think what they will.
I'm not.
So, two non-family members that you admire.
Two non-family members that I admire. Oh, wow. You mean just public people?
They could be public, private, living, dead, fictional.
Oh, gosh, I needed to think about this. Hillary Clinton, one. I admire her. I think she's a strong, credible woman with convictions, and she makes sense, and she's smart. And probably, this might be lame. Let me think. I don't know why John Keats popped into my head, but he's a poet. He was a poet. He's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I studied English literature, and I think it's fascinating how many of the people that are revered today are dead, and they pretty much died in poverty. So it makes you wonder about society and where we stand.
True.
Yeah, but lots more than two, but those were the two that came to me right now. So maybe that means something. I don't know.
Okay, that's good. Do you have a dream vacation destination?
Uh, God, yeah, so many places. Right now, I'm fascinated with Italy. I've been to Rome, but I'd
Hmm.
like to go back. I was in Rome for 2 days. You need more than 2 days to visit Rome.
Yes,
So,
definitely.
definitely, I'd like to go back. But I would like to go to Dubai,
Ah,
yeah, and Turkey. See those places I've never been.
very nice. And our last of my final five, if you weren't in the health and fitness business, what career would you have?
I'd be a photographer. I love taking
Ah,
pictures. It's still something that I do, and I have uh, album on Facebook that I call Instagrams, and they're just pictures that I take with my cell phone, and
mm-hmm.
I put them up on Facebook. People seem to like it. It gets more likes than my health posts.
I think I've breezed through your Instagrams myself. Thank you. Well, Stefan, thank you so much for joining us on our Green Fitness blog, and I will let you know when we are posted.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me.